Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, it is day 11 of RPG A Day 2018, and so our prompt for this Saturday is Wildest Character Name. And I have to confess that, like I said yesterday, after that really kind of personal question yesterday and my personal answer, I was looking forward to kind of having this light and fluffy question today and tomorrow. And I thought about maybe using an alternate question, because these questions, wildest character name and wildest character concept, they're a little self-indulgent. And I don't mean that in a negative manner, but we've all had that experience where we're talking to somebody and they start talking about their campaign or their character, all this cool stuff that happened, and we've done that to other people. And at some point you realize, they're just waiting to change the subject, because if you weren't there, it doesn't mean quite as much. But anyhow, I looked at the alternate questions, and none of them were really grabbing me so far. Maybe I'll answer those at the end of the month. I'm not really sure. Maybe a couple of them will grab me by that time. But anyhow, I have a confession to make. I like weird character names. Just kind of a thing of mine. And unlike some of my friends who I won't name, Anthony, Jason, etc., I don't mind when they show up. And that doesn't mean, don't get me wrong, like, I like a serious game. Sure, there's a time when I like a lighthearted game and everything's a little bit goofy, but that doesn't interest me for very long. I've been there, done that, and it's kind of neat every once in a while, but I'm kind of beyond the beer and pretzels kind of thing. Every once in a while. But despite the fact that I like a game with lots of gravitas and all that sort of stuff, and really get into character and get into the theme, it makes me smile a little bit when some of the characters and some of the non-player characters have some really odd names. And sometimes it doesn't have to be something that's really over the top. It can be just some kind of reference that maybe nobody else will get. Maybe I'll name them after a physicist or something like that, some really obscure person, and maybe people will get it, maybe they won't. It doesn't really matter. It's just something that, I'm not sure. Maybe it's because of my roots, because I started playing in 1981, and I remember my friend, I think it was Tom, it might have been Jim, but I think it was Tom, showed up with a character named Capstan Dolby. And, this is right around the same time that I had a character named Leviticus Strauss, and we called him Levi for short, and you'll figure that out if you haven't already. Just, the goofy stuff. And, like, we learned from Gary and company, because all the names they came up with for their characters were absolutely bizarre and plays on their names and all that kind of junk. And so that's part of where I think that comes from. However, there's some other reasons I think that I'm not so great at like, realistic names. It's because I'm not so great at realistic names. A few games I've set up where I had to come up with names like really authentic Prussian names or German names for a particular era, and I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible at American names, to be honest with you, coming up with names on the fly. Random name generators are great. Even then I look at them and say, I'm not really sure if I like that one or this one. Or, what's a period appropriate name for like 1895 in England? Is it, I don't know, Ringo? Not really sure. The other thing is, inside my head is a bit of a circus. And if you go in there, you kind of need an armed guard. You need an escort, because it's kind of bizarre in there. You enter at your own risk. And crazy stuff, is rolling around in my head. Let's not even go to, like, fantasy and science fiction names, because I'm not sure. What do I name him? Gork or Zolgar or, Zap Zap Magoo or, all that other kind of bizarre stuff. Not really sure what the heck's going to come out. But, yeah, a little crazy in the head. So, I have, real NPCs that I've had and run, like something like Penelope Featherbottom or Gelding the Clumsy. These names will just kind of come out. So it is what it is. So, I tend to be pretty good these days, mostly with my own characters that I'm playing. With NPCs, maybe it's a little bit off. Certainly, there's people in the games right now which I've named after figures or yeah, I guess I named some of my PCs that too. Never mind. I'll confess. But like, in the period of the hobby I was playing, like 2010, 2012, I did have some unusual names. Like I think I had Brother Warner, who was kind of a Looney Tunes sort of guy, really. And he was a cleric. I had my long-running fighter in our Greyhawk play-by-post game, who was Aprax, and he could actually talk, believe it or not. And probably my worst, most egregious, was Echinacea lupus tularemia, also known as lupus gangrene. Pretty bad stuff. However, none of those are my favorite wildest character. Now that I'm going through this self-indulgent crap about like what I've once again exposed myself. It was supposed to be light and fluffy, and now I'm just telling you about like how crazy I am. However, my favorite wild character name, if you can even call it that, is Alphonse Rouault's name of Briscourt Francois Letard's character, his bon vivant, his womanizer, that larger-than-life musketeer, the guy that just kind of David Lee Roth wishes he was. That means heartbreaker. I remember we talked about starting the All for One campaign, and Francois came to us and said, like, I've had this character concept for, I don't know, it was like 10, 20 years. He wanted to play a musketeer game, and he had this idea of this guy, Brice Cour, which is kind of like, I guess, Fanfan La Tulipe, and Sebastian and Francois clued me into who this guy was, and we watched some little videos. It's ridiculous. But he just had this idea, and it's not just the name, the Heartbreaker, but the way Francois plays them. Completely, everything matches, and so I never fail to smile every single time he starts playing that character. When I start thinking about the name, or thinking back on sessions of how he portrays him, it's just this name fits. So that's my answer after all that rambling. So have a good weekend, kids, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.